Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 29, talks between Narada and King Prachinabhari, text 48. Samlokam na vidustevai yatra devo janardanaha ahudumra deo vedam sakarma kama tadvida samlokam na vidustevai yatra devo janardanaha ahudumra deo vedam sakarmakam atadvida swamlokam nabadustevai yatra devo janardana ahudumra deo vedam sakarmakam atadvidaha. Vaishnavis. Swam, own, lokam, abode, na, never, vidu, no, te, such persons, by, certainly, yatra, where, deva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janardana, Krishna or Vishnu, Ahu, speak, Dumla Dia, the less intelligent class of men. Vedam, the 4 Vedas. Sakarmakam, full of ritualistic ceremonies. Atatvida, persons who are not in knowledge. Translation: those who are less intelligent accept the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies as all in all. They do not know that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand one's own home, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead lives. Not being interested in their real home, they are illusioned and search after other homes. Purport. Generally, people are not aware of their interest in life to return home back to Godhead. People do not know about their real home in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, there are many Vaikuntha planets, and the topmost planet is Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan. Despite the so-called advancement of civilization, there is no information of the Vaikuntha Lokas, the spiritual planets. At the present moment, so-called advanced civilized men are trying to go to other planets, but they do not know that even if they go to the highest planetary system, Brahmalok, they have to come back again to this planet. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. A Brahma Bhuvana Loka Puna Arvatino Juna Mamupetya Tukaunteya Punar Janma Navidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. If one goes to the highest planetary system within this universe, he still has to return after the effects of pious activities are finished. Space vehicles may go very high in the sky, but as soon as their fuel is finished, they have to return to this earthly planet. All these activities are performed in illusion. The real attempt should now be to return home back to Godhead. The process is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Yanti mad yajino pimam. Those who engage in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead return home back to Godhead. Human life is very valuable, and one should not waste it in vain exploration of other planets. One should be intelligent enough to return to Godhead. One should be interested in information about the spiritual Vaikuntha planets, and in particular, the planet known as Goloka Vrindavan, and should learn the art of going there by the simple method of devotional service, beginning with hearing, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. This is also confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Kalaya dosha nidhe rajan, asti heko mahan gunaha. Kirtanadeva Krishnasya mukta sangha param vajet. One can go to the supreme planet, param vajet, simply by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. This is especially meant for the people of this age, Kalaya dosha nidhe. It is the special advantage of this age that simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, one can become purified of all material contamination and return home back to Godhead. There is no doubt about this. Translation again, and this is Narada Muni talking to King Prachinabhari. Those who are less intelligent accept the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies as all in all. They do not know that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand one's own home, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead lives. Not being interested in their real home, they are illusioned and search after other homes. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Psychologically, you can look at your life as a search for homes. We're trying to find in the material world, always we're trying to find a place of stability, security, peace, and satisfaction. This is what's driving us on. But we're looking in the wrong place, and it takes so much information from the Vedas, so much guidance from the Parampara, so much good association for this point to stay in the forefront of our mind. In the forefront of our mind's eye. I'm only here temporarily. I'm in this body temporarily. I'm in this world temporarily. Where is my real home? Srimad Bhagavatam excels in giving you information about the real home. You don't have to speculate. It gives information about what you'll be doing in the real home. Without that information, it's natural we're going to be attached to the false material home. This is why constant and daily hearing is a must, because the effect of the material energy, its illusory energy, is so deadly that just a temporary lapse in hearing can affect your whole lifestyle. In other words, we have to be vigilant. And often we don't like being vigilant or being told to be vigilant. But indeed, being vigilant is the price for freedom from material existence. So it seems counterintuitive that if you're going to be happy and peaceful, you shouldn't have to worry so much about the nature of illusion and how illusion can affect us. But understanding this is part of freedom. To understand the dangers to your freedom, the dangers to your progressive development in bhakti. We may feel that, I don't want to hear about negativity. I don't want to hear about the material illusion. I don't want to criticize the temporary material satisfaction. I just want to be spiritual. But being spiritual includes knowledge of the spiritual energy and the material energy, as well as the source of both. Sometimes people want to point to the Vedas, not so much in this day and age, but in the time of King Prachinabarhi, even you can read about it 500 years ago in Chaitanya Leela. There were specialists, persons specializing in going to the heavenly planets. That was an absorption. In other words, they're showing you what a real materialist is. I've often explained that it's a false compliment to give, to call someone today a materialist, because they have no idea how to enjoy in the next life. According to the Vedic standard, a real materialist is aiming for the heavenly planets, the Nanda Kanana gardens, where there are men and women like angels enjoying in the gardens, drinking somaras, to almost eternally guarantee their sensual strength and relishment. Of course, no stay in the heavenly planets is eternal, but it's so long you can think it's eternal, even though the end must come. As Bhagavatam explains, one day in the heavenly planets is like 6 months of earth time. So you have the feeling that you can just go on and on and on. At the same time, believe it or not, in the heavenly planets there's fear. Because even though your life is so extended beyond what an earthling can imagine, you know it's going to end. This is the problem with all material enjoyment. Unless you blind yourself, drug yourself, you will be afflicted by the realization that sooner or later this is going to end. Still, a real materialist, as described in the Vedas, wants to enjoy the heavenly planets in the next life. What you have now, what you call materialists today, they have no idea even how to enjoy this life. And this is a very humiliating point. They'll do anything just for a momentary sense gratification, and that's considered the ultimate. Awesome. They have no idea how to enjoy in this life or the next life. Just look at the situation the environment of the earth is in. All because human beings think they know what is enjoyment, think they know what is progress. So in a real human society, which we don't have today, the path of Vedic sense enjoyment is there. It's one of the absorptions available. As Lord Chaitanya explains, Bhakti, Mukti, Siddhi, Kami, Sakali Ashanta. You can choose the path of being the path of Bhakti, material enjoyment, Vedic material enjoyment. Or you can choose Mukti, another absorption. That's another option in a real human society. I just want out. I just want to merge into the Brahman and lose my identity. That is a legitimate option in a real human civilization. Or Siddhi, I want mystic powers. Another real option. But you will not be peaceful, Lord Chaitanya says, with any of those three. Only Krishna Bhakta Nishkam, Ataiva Shanta. Only the Krishna Bhakta can be peaceful, because the Krishna Bhakta simply desires Krishna's pleasure, the service of Krishna as Krishna wants it. So it's very important for us to hear this information, even though you don't find anyone in your neighborhood performing Vedic rituals for going to the heavenly planets. You don't find anyone in your neighborhood developing the Ashtasiddhi, the 8 mystic perfections. But it's good to know what the options are, so you see the whole picture. Otherwise you think it's one way only. No. Bhagavatam says there are different ways, but they lead to different destinations. But if you want to go to the supreme destination, then you adopt bhakti. So in the purport, we read a little bit about Vaikuntha and Goloka Vrindavan. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya explains that even though you'll never get to the end of calculating the size of the material universe in terms of being able to measure everything precisely, still the Vaikuntha planets are completely immeasurable. Material world is known as immeasurable because it goes on and on and on. You can't count all the universes, I meant to say. You never get to the end. Still, it's a limit. But the limit is on human intelligence. But in Vaikuntha, you can't measure the Vaikuntha planets because the spiritual energy is boundaryless, limitless. But when you get to Goloka Vrindavan, Mahaprabhu explains, the topmost planet, Krishna Loka, contains all the material universes and all the Vaikuntha planets, and is still bigger. Containing means it's bigger. It contains the measurements of all the material universes, and you can't even calculate one universe. All the material universes, all the Vaikuntha planets put together cannot equal the size of Goloka Vrindavan. I remember when I first started reading Krishna book, and I was so fascinated by the descriptions of the spiritual world. I thought, I better hurry up and go there before it gets overcrowded. Sure, surely everyone who hears about this will want to go there. So that's an example of applying material conceptions to the spiritual reality. So just think about your life. What are the absorptions in your life? I don't think you're planning on going to the heavenly planets. I don't think that you want to merge into Brahman. And I don't think you want to develop mystic powers. What's available at this point in Kali Yuga? All that's available is the most low-grade indulgence, the most hypocritical imaginary pleasures. That's it. I remember once Srila Prabhupada exclaiming that he was remarking, how is it that people in this age fall for such low-grade pleasure? We would say, low-grade pleasure? Oh. We don't know any better. We're ignorant. So that's why it's good to hear about the options, bhakti, mukti, siddhi, kami. So we see the whole picture. Then we can better appreciate bhakti. So what we have today is not human life. But without knowledge, we'll think this is as good as it gets. Temporary indulgence. Get as much money, as much indulgence as you can. Pass it on to your children. Pass sufficient resources on to your children so they can do the same. And then you die. Where you go? Well, who knows? What's actually the story of our whole life? It can be summed up in one word: counteraction. Throughout the day, you can't count the times that you're trying to counteract suffering. You may think, it's a little chilly today. Was it 7 degrees when I came to the temple? Put on a coat. You just think like that, I'm putting on a coat. But what you're doing is trying to counteract misery. You don't think about it that way. Just watch yourself throughout the day. You can even make a time study of all the things you are doing just to counteract some pain, some inconvenience, some suffering. In this way, our whole life can be summed up as one huge attempt at counteraction. When it's too hot, you want to turn on the fan. When you're sleepy, you want to go to sleep. When you're lonely, you want to talk to someone. So you make the mistake of getting on Facebook. Everything we do practically is trying to counteract feeling some misery. That's what friends are for, right? That's what partners are for. They help you make it through the day and night. Counteraction again. But if I present to you the ultimate counteraction, get out of the material world, go back home, back to God, too much. If I present to you some temporary little counteraction, very practical, very necessary. So just try to calculate throughout your day all the things you do to counteract suffering. It's amazing. From morning to night, that's what you're doing. And yet, as I said, at the same time, if we say, stop all this suffering, all these various counteractions, and take the supreme counteraction, go back home, back to God, and be practical, Swami. Just see how ridiculous we are. So it's good to know the futility of the Vedic path of being a materialist. That's the best materialist path, but it's still considered, as Narada Muni says, for the less intelligent. And Krishna says the same thing in Bhagavad Gita, right? Those who are attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, they think that the goal of heavenly enjoyment is all in all. That attraction to the ritualistic ceremonies in the Vedas for going to the heavenly planets is compared to, I don't know if you've ever seen, very attractive, beautiful trees which have poison berries and flowers. You ever seen a tree like that? They have them in New Zealand? What are they called? Who knows? No one knows. But you've seen them in New Zealand. Yes, very beautiful trees with fruits and flowers, berries, but everyone knows, poisonous, even though the tree looks so beautiful. So the desire to go to the heavenly planets is like that. Those planets look very beautiful. But why are the fruits and flowers considered poison? Because you can't stay there. You say, what does it matter if I can't stay there for eternity? Just give me a few thousand years. That's all I want. But that just give me attitude is condemned. But we think, no, you're being fanatical. If I just have 60 years of my life of good enjoyment, I consider it a well-lived life. And here you are condemning thousands of years drinking somaras in the Nanda Kanana gardens with angelic beings. Something has shrunk our intelligence. Something has ruined our process of conceptualization. We're so focused narrowly on the here and now. The here and now is the product of our past karma, and the here and now is influencing our future karma. But always, we can't see. We're like a little child. Like if I say to this little child, Duranta Shakti's son, well, what are you going to do when you're 30? He'll look at me like, he can't calculate. He can't conceptualize, right? He can't think about that. 30 years old? He's just trying to make it to what, 6 years old? 5, yeah. He's just thinking, maybe when I'm 6, I'll have more toys. But if you ask him, what are you going to do when you're 30? It's beyond he can't think that far ahead. We are the same way. We ask, what's your destination? Destination? Oh, right now I'm going to countdown. That's as far as it gets. Oh, you mean what will I do with the family when school holidays come? So something has shrunk our intelligence. So we're so childish. And what has shrunken our intelligence? Kali Yuga. There was an example I've been speaking about lately. I like to repeat Leelas. You never hear them enough, and you can always go deeper and deeper. Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, I've been speaking about in other places in the USA, how Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda encountered Shaktas, deviant, immoral, so-called sannyasis who were following the path of Durga, Kali. And they would wear, maybe you've seen them in India, they wear this bright red cloth, and they live an immoral life. If you walk around Govardhan Hill, and sometimes you see these Babajis on the side of the road, and they have their little tent set up, and an altar, and there's Shiva, Durga on the altar, and they have a pipe in their hand, and first they offer the pipe to their deity of Durga or Shiva, and they're dressed as mendicants. So that goes on in India. They follow often tantric so-called yoga. How to follow the tamagun directives for enjoying intoxication, sensuality, meat eating. So Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda would sometimes encounter such persons, dressed in red cloth, presenting themselves as sannyasis, but everyone knows they're tantrics. They're into tamaguna. So Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda were on their way to the house of Advaita Acharya in Shantipur. Advaita Acharya is known as Shantipur Nath. And so on their way, they saw a house. And Lord Chaitanya asked Lord Nityananda, who lives in that house? They're having pastimes. And remember, Gaur Nitai, they are Patita Pavana, they're the deliverers of the most fallen. So anything Lord Chaitanya can do like that is about how somehow or other to attract someone to Krishna Bhakti. Who lives there? Nityananda replied, oh, it's one married sannyasi. He's a Shakta. What does Lord Chaitanya say? Oh, how interesting. Let's go inside. So they go inside, and the Shakta there, the tantric so-called sannyasi, is so overwhelmed seeing Lord Chaitanya's beauty. At this point, Mahaprabhu hasn't taken sannyas, so he's known as Visvambara. Nityananda is dressed as a sannyasi. Of course, Nityananda is Avaduta Chandra. He's beyond any Vedic ashrama's rules and regulations. So, the Shakta is overwhelmed by seeing Mahaprabhu's beautiful face, his limbs, and decides to give Mahaprabhu a benediction. May you have learning, wealth, a good family, and a nice wife. Lord Chaitanya says, go, Swami, go say. What kind of benediction is that? You, if you're, of course, Lord Chaitanya is saying Goswami, ironically. In other words, you call yourself Goswami, you should be giving true and real benedictions. But what are you giving me? That I would have prosperity, nice home, nice wife, material learning? You should be giving Krishna's mercy. Why? Because devotional service is indestructible, inexhaustible, unlimited. I don't think we often consider our devotional service, whatever we're doing, in that way. That through that service, you're entering the domain of eternality with no exhaustion, no decline. Devotional service is the portal by which you're in that kind of domain. People talk about being in the flow. What flow, though? Which river flow are you in? Are you in the material flow that takes you, in this age of Kali, takes you to animal life? Or are we in the devotional service flow, which takes us back to Godhead? So Lord Chaitanya pointed out to the Shakta that you should be giving me a benediction of Krishna's mercy, because that contains devotional service, and devotional service is indestructible and inexhaustible. Something for us to remember especially, so we don't take devotional service for granted. What was the Shakta's reaction? Just see the way things are these days. You try to give someone a benediction and they come after you with a stick. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur paraphrases the Shakta and says, the Shakta is saying, just see the effect of Kali Yuga. Here I am giving a wholesome, wonderful benediction, and he criticizes me. Not only does he not appreciate such a benediction, but he's criticized me on top of that. Just see what the world is coming to. So then Lord Chaitanya explains. But the Shakta has got more to say, actually. He says that, what's the point in living life without sensuality and intoxication and money? What's the point of your having taken birth? This is a common, unstated argument of people today. What? You're following those rules and regulations? What's the point? What are you doing with your life? Get a life. Get real. Indulge. Use it before you what? That's right. The Kali Yuga mantra, along with YOLO and FOMO. Use it before you lose it. That's wisdom, and that's what parents are passing down to their children in the name of education. So the Shakta said to Mahaprabhu, why be born? Why have a human body if you're not going after sensuality, intoxication, wealth? And he said, tell me, with bhakti, does it put food in your belly? People will argue like that in a more sophisticated way. Does your devotional service bring about economic growth? Everything today has to bring about economic growth. That's everyone's concern. How is the economy contracting? Is it growing? What are the interest rates? What's the inflation? These are considered the indicators of human progress. But Vedic knowledge rejects that. And Lord Chaitanya is going to explain why. Meanwhile, the Shakta is continuing to present a defense of his benediction for material enjoyment. But Lord Chaitanya counteracts his arguments by saying, you're worried about how bhakti will put food in your belly, but the food in your belly is according to your karma. What about a newborn child? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments about this in his commentary. Does a newborn child have to worry about milk in the mother's breast? As soon as the child comes out of the womb, the milk is there. The circumstances surrounding motherhood and childhood, that depends on your karma, but the milk is there, the food's there as soon as the child comes out of the womb. So Lord Chaitanya is trying to explain to the Shakta that your material prosperity will come to you according to your karma, whether you endeavor for it or not. So why waste your life struggling for something that's going to come to you automatically? Just like the milk in the mother's womb, the milk in the mother's breast comes to you automatically. You always have something to eat according to your karma. What else did Mahaprabhu, who is Vishwambar at the time, he hasn't taken sannyas. He explains that, yes, I know about the Vedas recommending the path of material enjoyment, but that's the compassion of the Vedas, to bring people who are materialists somehow or other in the camp, under the umbrella of the Vedas. So maybe one day they'll think, is there something better in the Vedas? So Mahaprabhu explains this is the compassion of the Vedas to present these flowery words about going to the heavenly planets, enjoying in the Nanda-Kanana gardens. And the Vedas present sanctions for material indulgence. Someone wants sex? Get married. Someone wants to drink? There's a ritual for drinking. If someone wants to eat meat, there's a ritual for doing that. These are considered for dumb persons. Persons trapped in tamoguna. Still, there's a Vedic process for that. Just like for the Shaktas, for the tantric mode of ignorance, so-called sadhus. They take a cup of liquor, wine, and they offer it to their deity of Kali, and then they say a mantra 5 times, take a sip, say another mantra for 5 times. So Vishwambar is explaining this is the compassion of the Vedas, that it contains some directive for everyone, even for those in the mode of ignorance, with the hope that once they're inside the Vedic tent, they'll gradually start to wonder, is there something better in the Vedas than this? So why then is Narada Muni criticizing King Pakshi Nabarhi? That those who are less intelligent accept the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies as all in all. They do not know the purpose of the Vedas is to understand one's own home, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead lives. Not being interested in their real home, they are illusioned and search after other homes. Another example Vishwambara gave to the tantric sannyasi was, if having a nice family with nice wife and children is the goal of life, why do you lose all that at the time of death? We say, well, I know what you're thinking. What's wrong? Yeah, well, you lose at the time of death, but when you have it, you have it. We just do reverse thinking on everything. Whereas Vishwambara's logic was, why should you make something the goal of your life that you're going to lose? But we say, we may lose it, but when we have it for a few moments, it's so good. This is Kali Yuga thinking. So it may be immediately hard to grasp how Vishwambara can say such a thing, that what's the value in a nice family life when at the time of death you're going to lose it? We say to that what? So what? Furthermore, Vishwambara said to him, what about a fever? No one wants a fever, but still it comes without your asking for it. So your whole life is like that. Your happiness and distress will come without your having to endeavor for it. You'll get it in the right proportion. Now, what was the tantric sannyasi's reaction? Oh, a child is trying to instruct me. A child who's still being nursed by his mother. That's how immature and inexperienced he is. He's saying that to Vishwambara. He's a suckling child, still being nursed, and he's trying to give me wisdom. I, who have toured the whole world. What did he consider the whole world? I've been to Hardwar. I've been to Rishikesh. He names about 10 holy spots in India. I've been to the whole world. And yet, this child is trying to tell me something. He decides then, the tantric sannyasi, how can a child be so arrogant and so ignorant? It probably is the fault of this sannyasi who he's with. He points to Nityananda. This sannyasi has probably bewildered this Brahmana child, this Brahmana Kumar. He's bewildered his intelligence. And so that's a cue for Nityananda to get into the whole discussion. Nityananda says, Goswami, please excuse this child. He's just a boy, he's just a child. He doesn't really know what he's talking about. Please excuse him, oh venerable Goswami. So you're wondering, what's going on here? This is Gaur Nitai having their pastimes. So the tantric sannyasi is so impressed by Nityananda's speaking such nice words, Nityananda's Sankirtan tactics. The tantric is so impressed, he says, oh, why don't you both have lunch here at my house, rest at my house? So first Nityananda says, no, we're very busy, we got a busy schedule, we have to go. Because there's no way Gauranga and Nitai are going to share the lunch of the tantric sannyasi. So Nityananda says, no, gotta go, we're already scheduled to be somewhere else. But then the tantric sannyasi pleads, come on, take your bath in the Ganga, come here, eat, rest. So the mission of Gauranga Nitai is to deliver the most fallen. So Nityananda said, all right. So they go, he and Gauranga, they go into the Ganga and they bathe. And then they come back with some milk and fruit. They would not eat what the tantric sannyasi cooked. They brought some milk and fruit, some mangoes, and ate them. And while they're eating, the tantric sannyasi looks at Nityananda and motions with his hand. I have some Ananda. Wouldn't you like some Ananda? So Lord Chaitanya looks at Nityananda and says, what's he talking about? What is this Ananda? And Nityananda, who's toured through, at that point, he had toured through many holy places. He'd seen it all. He says to Vishwambara, I think he's talking about wine. Immediately, Vishwambara gets up, and Nityananda and Vishwambara wash their hands, and they're gone. They jump into the Ganga for their purification. And then in the Ganga, they're floating down the Ganga to the house of Advaita Acharya. So you might wonder, what's the point of this? They are the deliverer of the most fallen. But even they had they drew the line somewhere. What is this Ananda? Wine? This is bad association. Let's get out of here. So even Lord Chaitanya can draw the line and say, and it's enough. Nitai, let's go. So remember the arguments that the tantric sannyasi was giving. You've got this human body, you must indulge. You've got this human body, you must make money. Why are you neglecting the purpose of your having the human form of life? And here you have Vishwambara trying to explain to him about how devotional service is the real treasure, the real benediction, inexhaustible, indestructible. But we, as I said, counter that by saying, I don't mind suffering in the future if I can have a little enjoyment today. That's the Kali Yuga mantra. If you really want to get to the bottom of the self-inflicted misery of Kali Yuga, make a diagram of all your hopes for enjoyment, material enjoyment, and see how they're problematic, either today or tomorrow. I'll probably be speaking later about this at the loft. We desire undiluted happiness, but that's impossible on the material platform. Happiness without compromise, without any problems attached to it, no anxiety embedded in it. But every time we try for material happiness, what do we get? The example we get is of sweet rice mixed with sand. Try it. Get some really good sweet rice and mix some sand in it and then try to drink it. If the first taste, oh, so good. We have any expert sweet rice makers in the congregation here? It's a real art making sweet rice. You can make sweet rice very quickly, but for the real sweet rice, we used to do that back in the early days of ISKCON. The whole Sunday feast depended on the quality of the sweet rice. Do you remember that, Sachi Sutta Prabhu? The cook would spend all day Saturday slowly cooking sweet rice, slowly cooking it. And then when night comes, Saturday night comes, you put it in the fridge because the best sweet rice is served chilled, and all the devotees are just waiting for the sweet rice that has taken 10 hours to cook. So suppose you had a cup of that kind of sweet rice, but there's sand in it. So you lift it to your mouth with such great expectations. Oh, this is going to be so good, sweet rice. You take your first taste. The first taste, you get the sweet rice. I knew it was going to be good. But then you take another sip, crunch, crunch. What's this in the sweet rice? I want a pure, unadulterated sweet rice. What is this sand doing it? And then what do your friends tell you? What does your family tell you? Huh? Keep drinking, it'll be better. Okay. Crunch, crunch, crunch. So you don't think to put the sweet rice down. You think, well, I guess that's life. That's the way life is. You take what you can get. What can you do? So you just try to enjoy the whole thing, even though it's Sweet rice mixed with sand. You don't want to put it down because there's nothing else to do. There's just material life. In my younger days, I used to think like that. Material happiness is certainly not everything everyone has made it out to be, but it seems to be the only game in town. I guess you got to play it. So out of ignorance, we accept such low-grade enjoyment. But we don't think it's low-grade. That's why we need Bhagavatam knowledge. Now what is Narada Muni trying to do with King Prachinabhari? He's spoken an allegory, which is extended over several chapters. He didn't just get up in the king's face and say, "You're a nonsense, get off your throne, go to the forest." He didn't do that. He constructed an allegory. Once upon a time, there was a king named Puranjana. And so, after hearing this extended allegory, Prachinabhari wants some explanation. Can you elaborate on these points? And that's what Narada Muni is doing now. After explaining the fools who are absorbed in Vedic ritualistic ceremonies for material purposes, Narada Muni is going to say, there's so many slaughtered animals through these Vedic rituals. He's not criticizing the Kali Yuga standard. He's criticizing the Vedic standard. You're doing all these rituals for the sake of elevation to the heavenly planets, and these rituals often involve sacrificing an animal. Don't you know? There'll be reactions for that, because you can't do every ritual perfectly, and one slip-up brings an extraordinary reaction upon you. And why are you absorbed in doing these rituals when you could be doing devotional service? You could be pleasing the Supreme Personality of God, who's your real friend. So at that point, King Prachinabhari starts getting motivated, but not motivated enough for Narada Muni. The king, as the purports explain, is thinking, I've got my sons off performing severe austerities and penances while I'm still king. My hope was always to get my sons trained up in jnana, knowledge, and vairagya, renunciation, and then bring them back to take over the throne, and then I go to the forest. So I'm now going to wait for them to come back from their place where they're performing severe austerities and penances. I'm ready to hand over things to them. I'll wait for them to come back. Sounds great, doesn't it? Not good enough for Narada Muni. I want you out of here now. So he tells Prachinabhari a further allegory that's more scary than the first one. So let me tell you about two deer, a male deer and a female deer. And they're in a nice forest, and they're eating the grass together. Not only are they eating the grass together, but they're fascinated by the humming of all the bees in the garden. They don't see that in front of them is a tiger, and in back of them is a hunter with a bow and arrow. They don't see that. So this is Narada Muni's scary allegory. And what does it mean? The male deer and the female deer eating the grass. That means, you know. And so they're eating the grass together. And what about the bees? The pleasing sound of the bees buzzing. That's hearing the conversation, the family conversation. The children making the parents happy, chirping, buzzing. Very nice. But what about this tiger? This tiger, it represents time. The tiger's just waiting. And then on the other side, there's a hunter with a bow and arrow. The hunter with the bow and arrow is dead. So just see this merry scene in the forest. The male deer, the female deer, the buzzing of the bees, and everyone is oblivious to the tiger and oblivious to the hunter. So that was Narada Muni's ultimate allegory. Okay, Prachinabhari, get on the move. Don't even wait for your sons to come back from their austerities. Don't even wait to hand the kingdom over to them. Now is the time. Leave! That's the potency of Narada Muni. And Prachinabhari was smart enough to grasp the whole thing. All right, we've talked about many subjects today, but remember the indestructible, inexhaustible nature of devotional service. Whatever service you have, do it to your best ability. Make that sacrifice for Krishna's pleasure, and you're entering into a different domain.